With the current cost of living crisis and the imminent recession, now's the time to be thinking about topping up that income or maybe even replacing it with an income purely from property. In this third video of a series of 3, I focus on the quick cash flow strategies utilizing the short stay model. Hey, my name is Saj Hussain. On this channel, I share with you my 15 plus years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing business. Over the last few years, serviced accommodation has become one of those go-to strategies to be able to build a business from property, especially property you don't own, simply control, to create fantastic cash flow. But what is it? How does it work? And how do you get started? That's exactly what this video is about. Serviced accommodation is the idea of taking a property and making it available for a much shorter space of time. So rather than letting a property in an ordinary way, say to a family or an individual for a period of say 6 months at a time, which is the normal way of doing it, are you renting a property on a 6-month tenancy agreement? What you're doing is breaking it down, or slicing time as I like to refer to it as, to much smaller components. So let me give you an analogy here. Let's say you own a little corner shop, you go to the cash and carry to buy a case of Coke cans. Now let's say those other varieties are available as well, but let's say they came in a pack of 30. I don't think they do, but let's assume they came in a pack of 30. You pay maybe say £30 for that pack of 30 cans, and then what you do, you put them on the shelf and you sell them one at a time, or you break up that pack and you might sell them at £2 each. So what you paid £30 wholesale, you retail them individually, so you generate £60. So essentially you're making a profit by breaking up a pack, and that's exactly what you're doing in serviced accommodation. Rather than selling 6 months of time to an individual, you're selling it on a nightly basis. And this is pretty much how hotels work. So it's a very similar model to that. And essentially what you're doing is you're providing a ready-made service for somebody. So the property is going to be fully furnished, all the bills are going to be inclusive. Some people will call this the Airbnb model because that's the main platform that many people use to advertise the properties in this way. There's many other ways to advertise the properties as well, but Airbnb tends to be the main portal. One of the most important things to remember here is in this business, you are not really acting as a landlord. It's more hospitality. It's about looking after people. People are your guests that come and stay with you and not your tenants. That means you need to be more sensitive to their needs. Think about it in this way. If you went to stay in a hotel for 2 or 3 nights versus say renting a flat for 6 months, what would be your difference in the expectation of what you're going to get in terms of what will come in that property and what service you expect to be provided? Some people will also refer to this as furnished holiday lets because that's one of the concepts that this is originally come from. And the type of people that will stay in these properties will vary considerably as well. So for example, in a furnished holiday let, let's say you've got something really nice in Devon, and the type of people that will stay in these type of properties will vary quite a bit. So for example, it could be leisure, it could be tourism, and it could be for business purposes as well. But it is important the location is matched with the right product for the right type of guest. So for example, if you've got serviced accommodation in Wolverhampton, you're probably going to find there's not many people that go on holiday to Wolverhampton. Now, no disrespect to Wolverhampton, we have serviced accommodation in Wolverhampton, but our primary market is our contractors, people that are working in the area and looking for short-term accommodation whilst they're working there. Now, we talked about the idea of what it is and time slicing it, but ultimately the reason you want to do this is because the cash flow it will generate. Now, you could do this with properties you go out and purchase, but we want to focus on quick cash flow in this video. And so the idea is you either take an existing property that you already have that you're repurposing for this use, or that you're renting a property from the market. So let's say you rent a 2-bedroom apartment. Let's say you're paying £700 a month rent to the landlord for that property. You are then making the property available, making that accommodation available on a nightly basis. Let's say £100 a night. So over a month, that could be £3,000, i.e. 100 times 30, £3,000 a month that you're collecting rent. Now, the reality is you're not going to have somebody staying there every single night, what we call the occupancy level. And it may be, let's say it's 70% that occupancy level. So let's say 21 nights are occupied. That would then generate you £2,100 during that month. So you're paying the landlord £700. Let's say you've got costs of £500-600, let's say even £700. You're still left with £700 of profit. Now, what are the costs we're talking about? Well, you're going to have to pay all the bills, the gas, electric, water, council, TV license, cleaners, gardeners, internet. Then you've got changeovers as well to think about. So each time you have a new guest coming in, you've got to change the bed sheets, the linen, you've got to put new soaps, things like this out, toiletries. So really this changeover, teas, coffees, whatever little bits and pieces that you'll be providing is a small cost, and that cost needs to be built in. So the numbers I'm sharing are very ballpark, but it gives you an idea of how this concept works. So for our business, we try and focus on £1,000 profit per unit. This is absolutely achievable, and for many people, let's say they've got 3 or maybe even 4 of these, that's more income than the average UK salary. In terms of implementing this strategy, I want to break this down into 3 steps. The first step is being able to do a little bit of research on the market, understand the market that you'll be working in. So earlier we mentioned the type of product, who will be staying there, the type of guest, and the location as well. These 3 things need to marry up in order to make it work. So the easiest way to do this first is to think about what type of clientele is it that you want to focus on. Who is it that you want to try and attract to come and stay in this type of accommodation? Then what I would do next is look at who already operates in the marketplace and what kind of products that they provide. So for example, that could be bed and breakfasts in the area, it could be hotels in the area, it could be other service accommodation providers that already operate in that area. You look at the quality of their product, what is it that they're providing, and how will that compare to what is it that you want to offer. Now, yes, you can compete on price by having something similar, which is a lower price, but I think that's always a race down to the bottom. In business, what you want to do is not focus on a lower price, but focus on value add. How can you provide more value and charge more for what is it that you're offering? So much of the accommodation that we provide, whether it's rental accommodation, it's HMO accommodation, it's serviced accommodation, we try and be at the higher end of the market with a quality product so we can charge a premium rent, a little bit like what a 5-star hotel will do. That's not going to be much different than, let's say, a 2-star hotel in the sense that it's going to provide you a room and a bed. However, that experience is going to be different and people will pay more for a better experience. Now, not everybody will be attracted to that higher priced product, but there will always be a market. Your job is to understand there is a demand for that market. Even if you're working in the contractor market, which might be more basic rates, for example, but you can still provide value add within that to make it more attractive as a proposition compared to your competition. The second step is about going out and finding the property. Now, some people refer to this as a rent to rent or rent to service accommodation, where we find a property from a landlord, we rent it from them over a period of time in order to be able to repurpose it in this way. Now, it doesn't have to be a property you go out and rent. It may even be a room in your house, a spare room. And if you look at the model, the Airbnb model, that's exactly where it started from. It started from renting a spare room. Well, actually, if you read the story, it's about renting a blow-up mattress. That's where the concept started from. But then it's about renting a room, and then it's about renting space in somebody's home, or then maybe even renting space when the owners are not there. So the model can operate in many different ways. The goal here is to create cash flow quite quickly. On this YouTube channel, I've got lots of videos about rent to rent as a concept and how to go and find them and how to even negotiate those types of deals. But one of the most important things is to use the right kind of paperwork to make sure the contracts are correct when you set up this agreement between you and the owner of the property. And if you want some more help with that, I'll link up a video over here where I've got a video focused on teaching you about the different types of contracts and which ones you need to use in each situation. Step 3 is about getting it up and running and creating an income from that property. Once you've got the keys for the property that you're going to be using in this way, the next thing to do is to get it all set up and get it prepared. Think about it as a room, apartment, or a house that you might go and stay with on your own, with friends, with work colleagues. What would be the expectation of what is it that you would need in that property? Essentially, it needs to be fully furnished with everything there. So the person turning up is probably just going to have a suitcase with their clothes with them and maybe a work laptop, and that's pretty much it. So there'll be some costs involved in getting it set up, but this doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to go in for high-end furniture and designer look to be able to create that wow factor. You can do that pretty much on the cheap if you've been selective about the way that you kit the property out and also about where you pick up the bits and pieces to really create that attractive look to the property. Once the property is set up, the next thing to do is to be able to get some fantastic photography done. And this bit is really important because this will be your opportunity to present the property in the best possible light. So it's important you're using either a professional photographer, or if you've got the skills and a great camera to do this yourself, to make sure the lighting is great and the property just really looks the best it possibly can. Because when you're advertising that property, is those photos that are going to bring in your potential guests. Once your photographs are ready, we need to get set up with the various different platforms, sometimes known as the OTAs, or online travel agents. As I mentioned earlier, Airbnb is one of the biggest providers. There's Booking.com and lots of other ones as well. But these are the platforms that are initially going to bring in your guests and be able to bring people to you. However, one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and we made this ourselves as well in the early days, is we become reliant and dependent on these platforms to bring the guests into us. But what we need to start doing nice and early is to start building relationships with alternative ways of being able to attract those guests to come and stay in our properties. So for example, if your focus, let's say, is on contractors, people that are going to be working there, maybe on Monday to Friday because they're out of town, working for a certain employer, that you take the time to find out locally who are these large employers that maybe have staff that come and either stay in the area working on site, or maybe who are these large employers that send staff out into your area where they don't have any offices, where they don't have any accommodation, but where they staff need to work and you can provide the accommodation. By fostering a relationship with them directly, it means you start taking the dependency away of relying on the big OTAs. Yes, the OTAs are important when we start our business to be able to help and launch and attract those initial clients to us. However, as I said earlier, you become dependent on them and they also take a slice of your revenue as well. If you can charge the same price directly for the accommodation to an organization, a business, as opposed to them coming through the platform, you're going to make a significant saving just on that alone. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, this is a hospitality business. That means you need to be responsive. You need to be able to deal with things quickly. If there's a problem arises, let's say there's an issue with the plumbing, that doesn't mean that you'll call Fred the plumber in about 3 days time to come and have a look at it. It means you need to be on it straight away, have somebody around dealing with it. So you need to be able to build up the team of people that are going to work with you, your cleaners, your housekeepers, your maintenance people, and also somebody being able to take the calls to be able to speak with guests with any issues or queries that they might have. As a thank you for watching this far, I want to give you some bonus tips. First of all is to think about your personality type. If you're the kind of person that has really great soft skills and great with people and communication, building those relationships, then absolutely this is going to be perfect for you. As I said, it's a hospitality business. However, if you're somebody that's, let's say, much more systems orientated, you like to set up processes and how things work, and maybe your relationship with people directly is a little bit different or can sometimes feel a little bit cold because the approach you have, then this business can still work for you, but you need that front end, somebody who's going to liaise with your clients directly, and you should focus your efforts and energy on building the systems. That's what's enabled us to be able to scale our business and build it quite significantly, is really the systems and the processes that we've been able to put into place, and of course having great team members that run and operate those systems to be able to really build that business up. Tip 2 is if you want to build this business for fast cash flow, you can absolutely do that. But many people make the mistake of building it on rocky foundations. What that means is they don't understand the compliance and the regulation that may be involved. And by taking the time to understand that and learn that, means you'll build a business on a solid platform to be able to build from. Those that build on a rocky foundation can fall over quite quickly. An example of this is, say, an apartment in an apartment block, which you are using for short stay, but it may be that the freeholder of the building doesn't allow you to operate short stay. A few years ago, a friend of mine had an apartment in this way that he let to somebody else to be able to run a service accommodation because he was paying him a higher rent, so he's quite happy for him to take it on this basis. However, neither my friend or the person taking on the property really took the time to understand what there was around the freeholder arrangement of that particular building. And so when the operator took the property on, literally within a couple of weeks of taking it on, they were shut down by the building managers who prevented them from operating in this way because there was no consent to be able to do short stay in that building. Now, for my friend, it wasn't a huge problem. He got the property back relatively quickly and got it relet. However, for the operator that took the property on, they lost out money because they spent money trying to get the property right, trying to get it all set up, and they didn't really get any of the bookings. And of course, it meant they're left with a lot of negative reviews on their business. And in this business, you live and die by your reviews. The third and final tip is to make sure that you've got good advisors around you. VAT can be a big challenge for those that operate in this space. Unfortunately, many people are unaware of the impact that VAT can have on their business and profitability. Other people will bury their head in the sand and just pretend they don't know anything about it. But the smart ones grasp the bull by the horn, make sure they understand it, and build it into the business nice and early in order to be able to build a successful business. Hey, look, if you've enjoyed this video, it'd really help me out if you click on my face over here to subscribe to the channel. It just helps us be able to reach more people. And if you want to see how during COVID our service accommodation business took an absolute battering and what we did to turn that around, then make sure you watch this video just over here. So I'll see you on this video next.